everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic, and good morning, Asgard, episode 37 of the Good Morning Asgard podcast, where today we're going to talk about a little situation that has unfolded since the very beginning of the weekend, with me getting locked out of my Twitter account. I'm not alone in this. Dan Vasc has also been locked out, and it's funny because the tweet that got me in trouble was actually a commentary, was actually a quoted tweet of the tweet that got Dan Vasc locked out of his account as well. So shout out to Dan Vasc, brother in crime, I guess you could say. But let's talk about today, explain the situation of what's going on with Twitter. What the lockout actually means. Some people have taken it to be that I was suspended or, anything like that. But I'm just going to explain straight off the bat that no, I'm just locked out of my account and I could get access back to it pretty much at any time. However, what they're asking me to do is something that I just don't really feel comfortable doing, because to me, it would be lying. To say the very least. And so we'll get into that. I'll also talk about what my alternate account is. I know that a lot of people have been starting to follow me over on my alternate account. So for those that have, thank you. But I also know that there's probably a lot of people that are like, is this really Odin? Like, what's going on? Is this someone maybe just trying to impersonate, or is this a hack situation? And I'm clearly telling you right now, no, it's not. I do have an alternate account that I created specifically because of the censorship. And I think that it's actually a pretty fun account to boot. Very proud of the very proud of the name, as it's a name that I have been memed with, being associated with Friday Night Tights. The Templar Odin meme has been fantastic, and so I've been able to take that now as a Twitter handle, and it's a lot of fun to be kind of doing the same thing that I've always been doing on social media, but at the same time also almost build up a a more nuanced persona as well. Let's just say that the hashtag Deus Vault is being used quite a bit. But we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk about gender ideology, as that plays a very major role in why I was locked out of my account. Let's just say that Twitter's rules do not support facts, does not support biology, biological fact. For many, amongst many other things that they do not support. And we'll talk about how gender ideology, and especially gender ideology in movies, I think we've seen a lot of it in the most recent film from Marvel, Thor: Love and Thunder. Thor, I forget the first name that people usually add on to it, but Thor blank and blunder. Love and blunder is what is it? Is that what people call it? Something like that. But we'll talk also about gender ideology in films and just gender ideology in general, because it obviously ties very much into this. So before we get any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and thank you all for joining me this beautiful morning. Let's say hello to some people before getting into it. Keely Chow in the chat. Hail to you, Keely Chow. Thank you very much for being here. Master of Gaming. Hail to you. Leslie Tarkin. What's going on? Leslie Tarkin. What's going on? Cacao and Cookies Minion, what's going on? Hail to you. Also, if you have a comment or question at any point today, just put @Odin at the very beginning of your comment, @Odin. It lets me know you're trying to get my attention. Helps me be able to decipher through the comments as I go through them. And if you are a member on the channel, then one of the perks of being a member is that you don't have to worry about that. Just Another Red Shirt, what's going on? Just Another Red Shirt, thank you very much for being here. Hail to you. Gary Banjo Sandwich Worthington, hail to you as well. No, I'm not eating pizza. I'm not always eating pizza. I eat pizza every Friday, and sometimes there are days where we'll get pizza during the week, but usually it's something we just get on Fridays. Gary Banjo Sandwich tagged and said, when you are born one gender, you are that gender fact. Yeah, you are in fact that gender. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll talk about what the gender ideology movement has become. What I think it probably started off as, or what I think some people probably are actually thinking as they try to justify that ideology in their minds. Because for some of them, I do honestly think that they have that good intention. You know how they always say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think there are some good intentioned people that support or embrace the gender ideology specifically. Maybe they even call themselves allies. But I think it's important for us to be very, and I know that I've been using this word a lot more recently, but it's true. We need to be a lot more nuanced with the discussion, because there is a truth to gender ideology. It's just unfortunately been so corrupted that now it denies basic truths and basic biological fact. And I'll get more into what I mean by that in a second. But it is, I think, something that's very important for us to be able to get into. Nigel Jones, what's going on? Greibel, hail to you. Thank you very much for being here. Robert Wiles, hail to you. Gavin Kennedy in the chat, what's going on? Thank you very much for being here. Star Cabal, what's going on? Thank you very much for being here. Scott McKenzie, who is a member. Hamilton Berger, thanks for tagging. Saying here, you should call your account Foden. No, already got it. Already got the name for it. So no need for that. Forbidden Ruin, what's going on? Thank you for being here. JKD76, who is a member. You're a bioessentialist, istophobe, bigot. Twitter, probably. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's hilarious, especially when I go through the process of what happened on the actual day the account was locked and the subsequent days since then, because it's actually kind of entertaining. Nearside Cyclops, what's going on? Thank you for being here. Fantasy Fanatic is also in the chat. Hail to you. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into it. So what happened to my Twitter? Why am I locked out of my account, and what's going on? Why can I go back at any time but choosing not to? All right, so it all started when I decided to tweet out an image. Rather not an image. I started to tweet out, to retweet a quote from Dan Vass. So Dan Vass had put out a tweet, and it was about Elliot Page, legal name, I think. If she's changed her name legally, I'm actually okay calling her Elliot, because if that's her legal name, okay. But I refuse to call her anything other than her or she, because that is her biological gender. That is a biological fact. And no matter what she does, that's never going to change. So Dan Vass put out a tweet about Elliot Page. And so I retweeted Dan, and then added my own commentary to it, also just pointing to, biological fact, and used the hashtag Ellen Page is a woman, because Ellen Page, former legal name on the birth certificate. I believe that was her birth certificate name. If not, name for her vast majority of her life. And so I think that there's nothing wrong with that. And it's not like I'm targeting her or anyone else. It's just statement of fact. That's what it comes down to. It's ultimately a statement of fact. But Twitter then decided to, not immediately, it was about maybe a day or so removed from that retweet, decided to claim that my retweet, violated their conditions, violated their terms of service. Let me see if I can actually pull up that image for everyone to look at, because, it's kind of amazing. It is kind of amazing to see exactly what they are, what they have claimed, what they have been doing with this. So let's go ahead and pull this image up for everybody. All right, let's go ahead also and enhance. So this is the email that I got from them. It says, "Hi, OMB Reviews. Your account at OMB Reviews has been locked for violating the Twitter rules, specifically for violating our rules against hateful conduct." It says, "You may not promote violence against, threaten, or harass other people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease." Now, what I find interesting about this is that by locking my account, are they not violating their own rules by harassing me? I can tell you right now that what they've done is much more akin to harassment than my simple retweet using a hashtag. It's like, unless you're actively looking for that hashtag, you're not going to be impacted by that. Or if you follow me, and if you follow me on Twitter, guess what? You're already knowing the things that I'm going to say. You're already having an idea of the kind of content you're going to see, or the things that I know to be true, or the things that I think when it comes to opinions. In this case, it's something that's a statement of biological fact. And so I would say, you know that I will post the truth. You know that I will post facts, and will always try to separate my, facts from opinions, right? Facts don't care about your feelings, as Ben Shapiro once said. But I do find it interesting that their own rules seem to be self-contradictory, but why would they care about that? But anyway, this is what got me in trouble. I said, "LOL, she's still a woman, y'all. Hashtag Ellen Page is a woman. Hashtag Ellen Page." All of that is true. She is still a woman. She may have legally changed her name to Elliot, but Elliot Page is still a woman. For most of her life, she went by the name Ellen Page. And so therefore, calling her Ellen Page really isn't all that bad in the first place. And if someone has a problem, or if Elliot herself gets triggered by that, that tells me more about her own mental state than it does about anything else. It then goes on to say, please note that repeated violations may lead to a permanent suspension of your account. Proceed to Twitter now to fix the issue with your account. So notice how it makes you go to Twitter to find out what exactly you need to go to. So after going to my account, right, so I get this email from them. After going to my account, there is a little countdown. And so it's 20 hours until your account is unlocked. And I'm like, okay, we'll wait and see what happens. Below that, there's also a message saying there might be other steps you have to take in order to unlock your account. I do find it a little bit convenient that they make you wait an X amount of time, right? They make you wait a certain amount of time before you can actually do anything, before you actually even know what process they're going to make you walk through. And so it's just 20 hours. And so it's a countdown. If you updated it, it would, show you how much time that you had remaining, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. Maybe it'll just be, hey, your account's unlocked. We've removed your tweet and don't do it again. I would have been like, hey, I think that rule is stupid. I think it's self-contradictory, but hey, ultimately it is still your platform. And so if you decided to remove the tweet, I'm going to call you out for it. But ultimately it's your platform, so you can do that. And as long as you do that consistently to everybody, which we all know they don't do, typically I wouldn't have a problem with it if it was any other platform. But since I know Twitter doesn't treat this equally, since I know Twitter very specifically goes after certain ideologies, certain specific ideologies, and are biased towards others, I obviously knew that, obviously if that had been the case, had that happened, we would have probably been having a little bit of a different discussion. However, the countdown eventually gets down to 0, and then all of a sudden it says, okay, your account can be unlocked. However, in order to do so, you need to delete the tweets. All right, you need to delete the tweets. And also, just so you know, and this is really where it comes down to me as being a bit of a moral issue, a bit of a moral, moral conundrum, one could say, about why I have such an issue with it. It said, if you want your account back, you have to delete the tweet. And if you delete the tweet, by doing so, you admit fault. By doing so, you admit that you have done something wrong. You admit that you have done something wrong. And so I think to that, and I look to that, and I think to myself, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And also, what it means is that they want me to lie. What it means is that they want me to lie to them. So let me see if I can pull up the email chain just to show y'all what it is. I obviously don't want to dox anybody, so that's why I'm just double checking all the things that are on my screen before I pull them up. But this was the email. So they also give you the option to appeal their decision, and so I decided to appeal the decision because obviously I thought to myself, okay, this is getting a bit ridiculous now. This is obviously not okay. This is something that's clearly ridiculous, right? So here is what they ended up sending to me. So here is the email. After the first appeal, it says, thank you for your patience as we reviewed your appeal. I also want to note very quickly here that when I initiated the appeal, I got this email from them after about 5 minutes. So I put in for an appeal, which makes me assume that they're going to have an actual human look at it. That's just maybe that's just me being maybe that's just me being a little bit, naive, right? There's a naivety to that, saying, oh yeah, someone real is going to look at it and they're probably going to, strike it down. But I got this back 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes later. So to me, it clearly showed the sign of either there's someone who's up late at night checking appeals, and as soon as they see the hashtag, they're like, nope, reject, not going to look at the context or anything. So someone that's just waiting for these types of things and is ready just to hit the, deny appeal, or they have an automated system where it looks at your appeal and it looks at any of the words, and they've got some algorithm or some bot basically looking at the content saying, oh, automatic, going to deny. But notice what it says here. Our support team has determined that a violation did take place, and therefore we will not overturn your decision. You will not be able to access Twitter through your account due to the violations of the Twitter rules, specifically our rules around, in order to restore account functionality, you can resolve the violations by logging into your account and completing the on-screen instructions. Again, notice how in the email themselves, in the email itself, they do not tell you what those instructions actually are. And in this case, it was you have to delete the tweet And not just you have to delete the tweet, but by doing so, you admit fault. By doing so, you admit fault. Now, I would love to show you that screen. I did not take a screenshot of it. I should have. But since I have submitted a second appeal, of which I have not gotten any response from yet, so it makes me think, okay, if that first one got back very quickly, is that just their system? Is it just that they automatically will deny every appeal, and then unless you appeal it again, then they'll have a human look at it, then they'll actually run it up the chain? It wouldn't surprise me at all. It would not surprise me at all. But anyway, that is what the issue, though, is that it's not that, oh, they want to delete the tweet. Because if they were just going to say, we're going to remove your tweet, I'm going to say, all right, you can do that. That's your prerogative, and I'm going to call you out for it. It is what it is. But when you say you, and we know that this has happened before, right? Because we know that there's been news media, right? We remember when the New York Post, remember when they got their account locked, when they got in trouble because they were talking about the Hunter Biden laptop story, which turned out to be completely true. Twitter wasn't, picking and choosing winners and losers there, wasn't playing politics whatsoever. Not at all. And we know that they've done it also at other times. And so this is not new news for anyone who's used Twitter before, has heard about these stories before. But the issue becomes a moral one for me when they say you have to remove the tweet, and by doing so, you admit that you have violated the rules. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to keep appealing it until I can't appeal it anymore, until they don't let me have that option anymore, because ultimately, I'm not deleting the tweet and admitting fault because I didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing in my tweet that's wrong. Please point to anything in the tweet. Please point to anything. And remember, this was a retweet. I can't even look at the retweet because that was removed publicly. And that's the other thing, too, is that they already removed the tweet. When they lock people out of their accounts, when they do this, they already remove it. Because I remember I've been trying to go to Dan Vask's Twitter page, and it shows very clearly that the tweet has been removed for violation of policy. So it's purely a power play. It's purely a power play. And for someone like me, I don't really care. It's like, oh, I had 11,000 followers. Oh my goodness, my 11,000 followers. No, you're keeping me from my 11,000 followers. I don't care. I mean, does it suck in a certain way because it makes things a little bit more difficult as far as the DMs that I had going on with people, the discussions that I had going on with people, and the way that some people were able to interact with me and keep in touch with me? Yeah, it's an inconvenience. It's absolutely an inconvenience. But it's like they think to themselves, and it's kind of that creepy thing. Imagine if I was a channel, or if I was a personality that had millions of followers. Imagine if I was someone who relied wholeheartedly on my Twitter following in order to stay in contact with anybody, which I think is a bad idea in general. That's why there are so many people who have obviously started up accounts on other alternate social media sites. I have a plethora of them. I'm on Gab, I'm on Minds, I'm on, I'm on Gab, Minds, I'm also on Truth Social. And I have a Discord server as well. If you want to follow me on any of those platforms, check out the top link in my video description. But then also too, I'm also still on Twitter. Now, some people have said, oh, but you got to be careful because you're not supposed to have another account, so they're going to get rid of it. And I'm like, okay, if they nuke it, they nuke it. If they nuke it, again, it's going to be an inconvenience, but ultimately that's going to be it. But if you don't want to follow me on Twitter, I am on Twitter. It's at Templar Odin. Yes, that's right. I think that it was a brilliant name. As it says, Odin of OMB Reviews locked out of my main account for posting facts, traditional Catholic independent movie buff and box office charter. And 230 people have already, this is an account I just created a couple days ago, really. So thank you to those that have followed me. But if anyone's been hesitant because they didn't know, this is my account. So this is in fact me. And also, yes, amazing image here of me as a Templar Knight. And unfortunately, I would shout out the artist, but again, this is where the inconvenience comes in. I would shout out the artist, but the main communication that I had with the artist was over Twitter DMs, which I do not have access to. So again, it's an inconvenience, but for me, it's like, okay, if this is the game you're going to play, guess what? I'm not going to play into your hand, because the only way that I would ever delete the tweet and, quote, take responsibility and admit fault is if as soon as I got my account back, I just doubled down and said, oh, I'm sorry. I said Ellen Page is still a woman. I meant to say Elliot Page is still a woman. I'll use her proper legal name. Like, that's the only thing that I would do. Like, that's the only, and I probably would do it just because I think there's a way you can download the data from your, from your site or from your Twitter. So I think you can like maybe download the data from your messages and stuff. That would be the only reason why, would be basically, all right, I'm just going to cut and run, or I'm just going to burn it to the ground. It's like, you've already done this to me. And so I'm just going to, go through the process, not really admitting anything because I didn't do anything wrong, because Ellen Page, or now legally, I guess, Elliot Page, is still a biological woman. And at the end of the day, it's like, I don't care. It's Twitter. It's not even real life. It's social media. It's a random number, and I don't define myself by a number. Is it nice to have a high number? Sure. It's like YouTube, right? It's like, oh, I'm getting close to 26,000 subscribers, I think. It's like, that's cool. That's pretty cool. Does it really mean a whole lot in my day-to-day life? Does it really, does it define my existence? No. Again, it's fun. I've always said I do this for fun. If it ever stopped being fun, I wouldn't do it anymore. But it is still fun, and I've been having fun for years now, and it's been so much fun, especially doing, collaborations with Geeks and Gamers, being a part of the Geeks and Gamers team, obviously being on Friday Night Tights, right, being a part of the origins of Friday Night Tights. That has been so much fun, and I love it. And I have no direct plans to change that anytime soon. So it's just amazing. Giant corporations like Twitter can just think to themselves, oh, we're going to do this power play. And for someone like me, 11,000 followers, yeah, it might, it's higher than a lot of other people might have. The ratio to, followers to people following is I guess, a good number, good metric. But again, all that it really is at this point is it's a major inconvenience. So it'd be nice if they decided to just delete it on their own. Like, they can claim I violated their rules. That's up to them. But if they're going to say, no, you have to admit fault, I'm going to say, no. Why would I admit fault when I didn't do anything wrong? Why would I admit fault when everything I stated in my retweet was a pure fact? Anyway. Let's go ahead and get back into the chat. So that's what's going on with the whole Twitter scenario, Twitter situation. But just remember, I am still on Twitter at Templar Odin is the alt account. And I am also available on a plethora of alt social media platforms too. And so for people who are saying, why are you still on Twitter? It's like, well, as I mentioned, 11,000 people were following me. And so that was the primary means of communication for a lot of people to both contact me, to be able to reach out to me. Also, a lot of the DMs that I had with the Friday Night Tights crew and other creators that I work with or have reached out to me, like, that's where a lot of that came through. Also, there's now a lot of messages that I don't have access to anymore. As you all know, I've been making rosaries. Now I'm starting to make rosaries during Friday Night Tights. And a lot of the people who were asking for rosaries, a lot of that information were in those DMs. And so I don't have access to them anymore. And so some people may have to, if things go the way that I think they will, may have to resend that type of information, which I don't like saying right off the bat, or don't want people to do, because I don't want people to have to put their personal information out more than they have to. But I just, it is an inconvenience. It is annoying, but it doesn't change my life. It doesn't really negatively impact my life whatsoever, because it's Twitter. It's not real life. Here's hoping that Elon Musk is able to take over. I hope that he's playing the 4D chess that I think he's playing personally, because I think it'd be amazing for Twitter to actually, be a free speech, or more of at least more of a free speech platform. Obviously, it can't be pure free speech, and even Elon Musk has said, But ultimately, I agree with a lot of the things that he does propose. For instance, I don't support acts of violence or supporting or calling for acts of violence. For instance, basically anything that's protected under the First Amendment is something that I would be supportive of. But it would be nice if this was just a 4D chess plan from him, and for a bunch of people to get their accounts back who have been locked out, or who have been permanently suspended, or whatever. But yeah, I do have, but just to reiterate, I am on True Social, I am on Minds, on Gab, I have a Discord server, I am also on Instagram as well. Was being a little bit more active on Twitter, on Instagram more recently. Some really cute videos of baby Thor saying Star Wars. He's watched the entire Star Wars trilogy. That's insane to me. But the little dude loves it. Little dude's like, oh my goodness. Little dude who, when we're watching these little 7-minute episodes of the show Bluey, which is actually a really good show, he'll sometimes be invested, but then other times he'll just be back and forth. When Star Wars is on, it's just like, whoa. But yeah, he's watched the entire original trilogy. Not all in one sitting, but for being a little under 2, for being a little over a year and a half, it's pretty impressive stuff. All right, getting back to the comments, we got JKD76, who's a member, saying, oh, I was there in the late 90s in college when all this started. I figured it would get to here. Gender is not the same as role, and my degree is in sociology. Exactly, and that kind of leads to, and we'll have a further discussion about it, about gender ideology in general, right? Because there is that nuanced discussion that needs to happen, because here is the lie that you are always told. This is the lie that's written into the very rules of Twitter. Twitter has a falsehood in their rules. They are defending a falsehood, and that is the concept of gender identity. Because it's a complete fabrication. It's a complete fabrication. It is a mental illness, and I pray for the people that suffer from it. But ultimately, it is a mental illness, and may not be popular to say that. It can obviously be something that gets me yeeted for, hate speech, but I don't hate anybody. I love these people. I love all people. That's kind of like my generic standby, is I don't really hate anybody, or at least I try not to. Obviously, I'm imperfect. I feel anger. I feel frustration, but I try not to feel hatred towards anyone, because ultimately they're still a human being and they still have human dignity, and I want what is good for them. Right? That's what true love is to desire and to will the good of the other. And so when you see someone who's running towards a cliff to fall off, it's their choice to do so, but I'm not just going to stand by and watch them and not say something. At the very least, to not say something. But yeah, this whole lie that's been perpetuated is that gender and sex are different. No, they have been the same and have been used interchangeably since the very beginning of the concept itself has ever been brought into culture and society, right? Gender and sex have always been interchangeable in that way. What's happened with gender ideology is that what they have done is said, oh, let's say that there is a distinction, and let's say that this gender, right? Gender itself is actually a construct. All that they've done, though, is say gender roles, which are a social construct. What it means to be a man, that's a social construct. What it means to be a man in America is not the same as what it means to be a man in Europe, is not the same as what it means to be a man or manly in a tribe of Africa. Right? The really fantastic, I think the most important documentary of our time, What is a Woman, from Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, like literally he goes to a tribe in Africa and they are very clear about this stuff you're telling us is just nonsense. There's no frame of reference whatsoever. But we look to this and we say to ourselves, okay, if we were talking just about gender roles, if we were just talking about what it means to be female, or whatever, more specific, what it means to be feminine, what it means to be masculine, that would be a discussion that I think would be a very interesting debate, because that is a topic you actually could debate. That's a topic that you actually could have a discussion on, right? What is it really to be a man? What does it mean to be manly? What does it mean to really be a masculine person or to be a feminine person? Are these good traits? Are these bad traits, right? That would be a worthy discussion to have with somebody. But when someone says, I identify as this, you're like, okay, you've lost the plot. You're rejecting reality. There's no way we can have an actual discussion. Because it's ultimately going to come down to, you're rejecting reality, you're trying to have me reject reality, and I'm not going to do that. It's hard to have a discussion with somebody when you're not even on the same, if you're not even in the same planet, if you're not even in the same world, if you're not even playing by the same rules, how are you going to be able to have an honest discussion with somebody to go over the nuances of any discussion whatsoever, right? It's basically someone is trying to present an opinion which is a complete and utter falsehood, and a provable falsehood, as fact, with someone who is just trying to say, okay, we need to at least start from the same level. We need to at least start from the same playing field. Like, we need to at least start there. Otherwise, if you're not on the same field, you can't play. It's like you're off playing basketball, I'm over here playing baseball, and guess what? We're never going to be able to see eye to eye, or we're never going to be able to understand each other until we are at least on the same playing field. But yeah, that's what it comes down to, though, is that this gender ideology that's being perpetuated in our social structures, through our social media companies like Twitter, in our movies, right? Thor: Love and Thunder had a lot of this going on in their most recent film. The MCU had it going on in Love and Thunder itself. And ultimately what it's doing is it's trying to blend and blur those lines. And it's trying to take an actual social construct of what it is to be, masculine or feminine, which are social constructs, which do differ depending on your culture and society, and trying to say, now those are biological distinctions, and you can claim whichever biological distinction that you feel, which is just erroneous on so many levels. Wait, I can't claim a biological distinction, which is based in fact, based on my feelings, which are subjective. Doesn't really work that way. So it is something that's very sad to see in general, because a lot of people are being pushed down this road. A lot of people are being told and sold a bill of lies. And when you have giant social media companies like Twitter, for instance, pushing these lies and engendering them into their very rules, no pun intended, you start to realize that this impact that it's having on our culture is so much deeper, is so much darker. And that's why you're seeing now these drag queen story hours. And now you're seeing these drag queen shows, these strip shows where kids are being brought. If we were in an honest society, if we were in an actual good culture, we would look to that immediately and every person would say, that's child abuse. That's ridiculous. Freedom is one thing. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression is one thing. But when you're starting to bring impressionable minds who cannot really choose for themselves because they don't really understand things, then you've just crossed a very major line. Anyway, back to the chat. GMonkey76, good morning to you. Joey Horn, welcome back to the chat, good sir. Robert Wiles, thanks for tagging. Saying here, I'll sub as soon as I can. Money is tight. I just had my first aqua therapy yesterday, and it was the first time since 2003 I felt no pain. I about broke down and cried how good it felt to be blessed. Hey, well, God bless you, Robert Wiles. And I mean, you're already subscribed to the channel just by being in the chat. You're already subscribed. I guess you mean like to be a member on the channel. I would say it would be better to become a member on something like Subscribestar or one of those alternatives, because remember, YouTube gets a cut of every membership, and they get 30% of every membership, 30% of every super chat. So that's why I always say, if anyone does want to support, you don't have to, but if you do, go through Streamlabs. Mama Susan gets none of that, and the only thing that's taken out of the Streamlabs donations is just a processing fee. When you go to, Patreon has its major issues. However, its structure is definitely really good. They take out a certain percentage. But that's why I also give people alternatives. That's why I'm available on Locals as well. I do have a Locals account. I also have Subscribestar. So, they all have their plus and minuses, but I give people those options if they want to support. They don't have to. But I appreciate it nonetheless. Felicitas, what's going on? Had to say it was probably trending and they needed to squash it. Well, that's the thing. They already did. They had already done that at this point. They had already done it. It was trending. Ellen Page specifically. Ellen Page was trending. And they got called out by the social media mob, by the social justice mob on Twitter. And then they said, oh, we're sorry. We're so sorry. And they did quash it, which just raises a whole other level, because one of the things that I think Elon Musk is trying to do with the deal is to expose, right, what's going on with Twitter, not just the bots situation, but also the cultural impact. Because what Twitter just admitted, and I think this is kind of getting lost on a lot of people, but what Twitter just admitted is that they have full control, not only over the algorithm, which we all know, but also something that I think most of us know, but we don't say as much, but they can control what is trending. Meaning, if they want a certain person's story to be trending for people to talk about it and to show up in the trending tab, they have the full control to do that. If they don't want something trending, they have the full control to not do that. So when people, for instance, are talking about Hunter Biden or the Hunter Biden laptop and they don't want people to know about it, they can quash it. And again, we all inherently know this, but I don't think we ever fully realize or understand, or at least say out loud, how disturbing that is. Because if you want to talk about how to influence society and influence culture and influence public perception, controlling the message is a big part of that. And that's why there are now questions about, has the federal government been involved in the decisions that have been made by Twitter or not? Is Twitter acting as a arm or an extension of the federal government? And so if Elon Musk gets sued, he's like, hey, bring it on, baby, because guess what? During discovery, I'm going after all this information. That's why I think that they'll probably end up settling, and he'll probably end up getting it for a much cheaper amount, if I had to guess. See, Chef Nick Nero tried to say, up is down, war is peace, slavery is freedom. Ellen Page is a woman. It's a fact. She was born a woman. She changed her name. So Ellen is still, in fact, a woman. She doesn't exist anymore, apparently. Exactly. Exactly. It's just like with Bruce Jenner, right? Okay, he changed his name to Caitlyn. He got surgeries, whatever, but ultimately he's still a man. We're not just going to go back and say that Caitlyn Jenner won all of those, won at the Olympics, because that would just not, that's not true. It's the same person. Yeah. No matter what you do. It's like if I go back in time to when I had long flowing hair compared to now, okay. Oh man, major difference for a lot of different things. However, big important thing. Oh, that's right. I'm still the same person. I can't change that. I can't change who I am. Even if I go to a point where I lose all memory of myself, still the same person. My personality might change, physical qualities might change, but I ultimately do not get to change and have no power to change the person that I actually am. None whatsoever. And I think what's so disturbing is that while Twitter and other social media platforms will perpetuate and push forward these, the trans stories, right? The transitioning stories, you'll oftentimes see, especially on YouTube, the attempt to quash or at the very least to limit the reach of the detransitioning stories of the people who said, I made a very big mistake and this is something that's not being talked about. And that, again, go back to What is a Woman? That's the reason why that is such an important documentary for our time. Let's see. Nick goes on to say, I cut and pasted you. I also got suspended. However, I use Twitter on the bowl to make me giggle when I flush it. I'm done for the day. Again, it's not real life. It's fun, right? It's fun to post random things, right? It's fun to have that type of engagement, the back and forth, and to share information that I think is important and that should be reached. I think it is also a great way, or it could be a much better way, or it could be, again, a good way to receive news and updates like that. But ultimately, they need to have someone in charge that's not going to be a complete political ideologue who's going to push and perpetuate their false ideology, especially. Not just an ideology, but a false one that's devoid of any reality whatsoever. It has to change. Let's see. Quatrina VR, what's going on? Welcome. Ambrose Chamberpot, welcome to the channel. Just Another Red Shirt, who is a member, says, is gender dysphoria considered to be a serious disease? Well, that's the thing, is that the language itself has changed. This is something that the What is a Woman documentary actually goes into, is the fact that the definitions have changed. We've already seen that with COVID. Remember how the definition of a vaccine has changed over time, and how there was a major change during COVID? That's what's going on now with gender dysphoria, right? Is that it used to be gender identity disorder or something similar to that. And so now it's just called gender dysphoria. But even that one, I think, is still correct as far as what it's saying, right? About what the actual issue is. But it used to be where it was considered to be a mental illness. And now it's, again, you have these therapists that exist, and it's to me evil to even call them a therapist. So-called therapists who do what's called gender affirming therapy, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because it's just downright evil. Not even just the dumbest thing. It's the most evil thing I've ever heard. One of the most evil things I've ever heard, because when you go to therapy, their job is not to affirm your feelings. If that is what your therapist is doing, you need to leave that therapist. They are there to listen to you and to try to help you get through whatever issue it is that you're going through, whether it's ADD, whether it's depression, anxiety. Could you imagine if there was depression affirming therapist? They are basically pushing that ideology. Oh, are you trying to say that depression is on the same level as gender dysphoria? Yeah, because it's in the brain. It's based off of these chemical reactions in the brain. And when it comes to that, yeah, there's something wrong. There is something wrong. Now, do I think that people need to be forced into therapy, that people need to be taken off the streets, etc.? No, absolutely not. But if someone is a danger to others or themselves, that's when we have that conversation, especially with family members. Ryan Dole's tagged to say, why is Twitter so afraid of using the word ban? I know, seriously. You notice how they're like, oh, you need to go to the Twitter app. You need to go to your profile to find out what you need to do. It's one of the most ridiculous things. In Disguise, meep, what's going on in Disguise? Welcome back to the chat. Let's see. JKDBuck76, who is a member, says, guess what will happen 1,000 years from now when archaeologists dig up Paige's skeleton and if they sample the DNA and find XX chromosomes? Exactly. They'll say, oh, a woman died here. They won't say, oh, a self-identified trans man died here. No, they won't. Because that's just not how any of this works. It's actually terrifying. It is terrifying. Scott McKenzie, who's a member, says the censors at social media companies are activists, not objective, non-government Ministry of Truth people. Should brush up on 1984, Brave New World, and Animal Farm, and dig deep into the Bible, etc. I totally agree. They need a lot of help on many levels. Zelina SW, what's going on? Absolutely. Thanks for tagging. It is out of control. It is completely out of control. G-Man, yeah, that's what they're trying to say is you will comply if you want to have access to your account. You must admit that you did something wrong. But I didn't. Doesn't matter. You must admit it. But I didn't. But you violated our rules. I don't think I did. Well, you have to admit it to get it back. Okay, well, I'm not because I didn't do anything wrong and I don't think I violated your rules. And even if I did violate your rules are stupid and not based in reality. So if you want to delete the tweet yourself, which you've already done, by the way, again, that's why we know it's all about truth. Because if it was still out in public and they were like, oh, no, we want this to be something where you delete it, that still would be bad. That's still you pushing, that's still an evil thing to do. But the fact that they've already deleted it, they've already removed it so that people can't actually see it. So to make you jump through that hoop of, oh, no, you have to delete it because by doing so, basically it's, oh, you're signing on the dotted line to say that I did something wrong. No, that's not the case. As I said, the only way that I'm ever going to do that, the only way that I'm going to go through that process, if that's the only process that remains, is if I decide one day, all right, I'm done with this. I don't care about the account anymore at all. I'm going to see if I can, and I would do research even before doing this. I would say, okay, is there a way for me to download my messages? Is there a way for me to download this key information that I might actually need, that I might actually have to have access to? And then from there, I would then double down and retweet the same thing and just say, oh, I'm sorry. Let me put her legal name and say hashtag Elliot Page is a woman, because I guess that's more accurate, even though it's the same exact person, just different legal name. That'd be the only way. But I'm still a ways from that. I'm still a ways from that. Anyway, over on Odyssey, what's going on? We got Mac Tavish. What's going on? Jacques Lesuave, thank you for tagging. He tagged to say hashtag Ellen Page is a woman, hashtag all men must die, hashtag abortion is murder, hashtag free Hong Kong, hashtag Taiwan is a country, hashtag Bidens are corrupt. Am I canceled yet? Well, luckily you're on Odyssey, which is a lot more supportive of free speech, so you don't have to really worry about that nearly as much. And yeah, I saw the comment you made underneath it saying, if you're on the same list as Jordan Peterson, you're probably doing something right. Yeah, I'm on the same list as Dan Vask too, right? I'm on the same list as Dan Vask. He's a great guy. The Ghost says, delete it and tweet the same thing again. As I said, if I do decide to do that, that's the only way I'll do it. Because again, there's a moral problem that I have with their rules. There's a moral problem I have with this specific rule, or really this demand that they're giving me, is we're going to hold your account hostage unless you admit fault. That is the biggest problem that I have with it. Because if they were saying, if you click on this button, we're going to we're going to confirm the deletion of your tweet, and that was it, I'd be like, okay, well, you can delete, you've already deleted it, so I don't really know why I'm pushing this button anyway, but you've already deleted it. But instead it's, no, you have to go through this. You have to actually go through the process of admitting fault. It's like, well, I'm not going to do that because I didn't do anything wrong, and it would be a lie for me to do that. It would be a complete and utter lie for me to do that. JKD Buck 76 says, there are 4 lights. I must have missed... I must have missed that one. Let's see. JKD Buck says, whether Elon buys them at a discounted rate or not, I hope they collapse like my hopes for a good Star Wars movie out of Disney. Yeah, I mean, and that's for me, I think, the difficult thing is, okay, do I want it to be saved right? Do I want it to be changed and altered into something better? Which I think is only going to happen if Elon or someone else like Elon does take over and implements what he plans to do, or do I want it to collapse? Because I think either would be a net good. Obviously, I think if social media in general went away, there would be a net good to that as well. But I do also recognize that there is a need, or rather that there is, maybe need's not the best word, but there is as I mentioned previously, there is a convenience to it. As I said, for some people, that is the primary way that they communicate with others. For some people, it's the way that they are able to get breaking news. I think Twitter actually is a very good way to get that type of breaking news, on the ground coverage, that kind of thing. So I do think that there's a place for it. But yeah, I would love to see either. So basically, the two options for me is either it gets completely revamped and becomes an incredible platform where it actually does push for better engagement on ideas and concepts and, news and that kind of thing, or it just falls apart and basically Elon says, you have 2 days to download any data that you find necessary, whether that be media, right, pictures or videos that you've posted, etc., messages or anything to that effect. Reach out to people with alternate means of communication, because in 2 days I'm pushing the big red button that says delete. I'd say, okay. Again, just like with me being locked out of my account right now, it's like it's not real life. It's an inconvenience. It's an inconvenience, but that's about all that it is. Gary Banner Sandwich Worthington says, admit Twitter bots run Twitter. Exactly. That's why I think that Elon is definitely running I think that he is definitely running, or rather that he's playing a little bit of that 3D or 4D chess. Let's see. JKD-Buck76 says here, to say Twitter is cancer is an insult to cancer. Yep. Agreed. The Clown World Review, thank you for being a member on the channel, good sir. He says, hail all, good morning. Good morning to you. By the way, if you're wondering why I have not read any super chats, or if I haven't gotten to your comment yet, as you can see, hopefully with the little ticker on the bottom, I usually fall about 20 minutes behind or so. So I'm going to get to comments as long as you've tagged me at Odin at the very beginning, or if you are a member on the YouTube channel, then I will be getting to your comment. I'll always let y'all know if the chat jumps on me where it might skip comments. Let's see. JKD Buck, who's a member, says Twitter stock is $32.65, far below Elon's offer. Yep. Now, I think Twitter might try to argue in court that it was the actions of Elon that drove the price down. But a good counter to that, I was listening to this. I forgot which podcast I was listening to it the other day. Maybe it may have been a Tim Pool episode where basically, yeah, but he also owns 9% of Twitter, so he'd be driving his own stock price down. So what, I think that's actually a good counter argument. Gary Banjo says, temporary account or new Prime. Well, if they continue to say, well, your account is locked until you do X, then it's going to be my new Prime. So similar to what happened with Az, right? Az got his account locked, and eventually, I think his eventually got unlocked when the initial deal with Elon was announced. Remember those days? I remember months ago when the deal was initially announced, and overnight, many left-wing personalities lost tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. And then a lot of more conservative, right-wing, independent, libertarian types gained a lot of followers, and a lot of people also happened to admit at the same time that they were banned and now no longer were banned. Oh, yeah. I remember. But yeah, right now I'm using it as my main account. I'm using it just like I would normally. And really the only difference is that there are still a lot of people that probably are still following the OG account who must have missed, must not follow me anywhere else to find out that I am still on the platform. Just I have to go under a different name. And that's why I do also recognize that, because people say, well, they might delete that one too, because technically you're not supposed to create X. It's like, yeah, but again, I don't care if they delete the account, if they nuke the account, it is what it is. But that's why I'm on Minds. That's why I'm on Gab. That's why I'm on Truth. That's why I'm on Instagram, Discord. So that way people in general have a plethora of options to follow or to do whatever, but it is what it is. Nerd Cookies, what's going on, Nerd Cookies? I see that there's a little check mark next to your name, so thank you for being here. I appreciate you. It's not a real place, but it can be helpful to push your platform. Exactly, right? That's why it's an inconvenience, you know? And that's why, for me, it's, okay, I just had 11,000 followers, which I think is, it's a nice number. It's a nice number to have. But I feel more so for the people who might still be waiting for me to tweet something saying, I wonder where Odin is. I wonder what's going on. But if they don't follow me in other places, then I don't know what to say to them. Let's see. Fantasy Fanatic attacked to say, have you ever been to Israel? We have a bunch of really cool Crusader era ruins and structures. No, I've not. It's on my to-do list. It's on my bucket list. So would love to be able to do that at some point in my life. But yeah, Phaser 1X, what's going on? Hail to you. Nope. Yep. Chromosomes, they do not lie. And that's why it's amazing whenever people say, yeah, but what about those that are intersex? And I say to that, well, you still have either a manly woman or a womanly man. Like there is still a distinct, or prime, I guess you could say in this instance, there is still a primary gender. There's still a primary sex even in those cases. And if you really bring those up, we're talking about 1 in every, 10,000 births was, I think, the last statistic I heard about that one. So talking about a very, 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 very small portion of the population. And that's not even what we're talking about in this instance, right? If we're talking about people who are born intersex, meaning they have a chromosomal disorder, means that there's something wrong with them at the biological chromosomal level, we can have a much more nuanced discussion about that. Because I think a lot more people would be like, I understand. There must be so many different signals going on in your brain right now because of the way in which you were born. You know, you always hear that expression, #born this way. No, in those cases, we're actually talking about people who are going to be actually struggling with real life issues. But it's such a rare thing, and it's not at all connected to what is going on in the trans discussion. In the trans discussion, we're talking about people who have an actual psychological mental illness, who need help. Robert Wiles tagged to say, I love Displate to have them custom one of my late pug, whose name was G.I. Joe. Nice. Very cool. Yeah, I have some Displates. I still have a link to the Displate where I believe that link should still work. I haven't bought something from them in a long time, but yeah, I still need to find a way, or I still need to find a place to hang my Displates. I know there's a lot of space behind me, but I am terrible when it comes to design, so we'll do what we can do. Alrighty then, let's see. Thunder Duck, what's going on? Thank you for tagging. Saying here, Time for Midnight's Edge liked Ragnarok but hated Love and Thunder. Your thoughts on how you can like one but hate the other if both are full of stupid jokes, one-liners, not taking anything seriously? Yeah, I mean, I am someone that goes by the fact that I did like Ragnarok, and I think the reason why I don't like Love and Thunder is because Ragnarok had a balance. I think Ragnarok was much more balanced. It did have a lot more jokes compared to, like, it basically, it comes down to, I think, perspective, or it comes down to, what's the word I'm thinking of? Volume or level, right? So the difference between what you had in Thor, the original, and Thor Dark World versus Ragnarok, as far as like jokes to story, is pretty vast. But then when you look at that same dynamic or that same change or level change between Ragnarok and Love and Thunder, it's exponentially higher. So it's enough to work in Ragnarok for me. Again, this is a personal perspective here. Everyone's going to have a different perspective on this. What is the appropriate level of jokes, for instance? But I thought that the jokes worked well enough in Ragnarok and were at a fair level to also be able to not hinder the story all that much. But when you look to Love and Thunder, we're talking about it being maybe 10 to 1,000 times more egregious, to the point where it is much more destructive to the story. Jackety Buck says, never indulge a delusion. If I scream that I'm Napoleon Bonaparte, you're playing along with me. Doesn't help. Facts. The one that I always think about is, if someone looks into the mirror and they're really skinny, but they see a fat person, meaning that they are anorexic or they have maybe a form of bulimia or something similar to that, are we supposed to affirm their identity? Are we supposed to affirm them in that? If someone's massive because they overeat and they look at themselves in the mirror and they say, I'm beautiful and healthy, when in reality, they're not, are we supposed to just sit by and affirm? No, we don't play along in the fantasies. Or we're not supposed to. To be a decent human being, you would say, hey, I care about you enough to say that there's something wrong here, that you need help. But yeah, you don't play along within the fantasy. The only time that people ever do play along in the fantasy is typically when someone is in an actual psychological ward, and for their own safety, they play into it. Not when it comes to someone's general interactions with society. Let's see. Thunderduck says, I love Tom from Midnight's Edge, by the way, not ripping on him. Love his work. Yeah, well, again, I have a very similar opinion that he does to it, where I thought that Ragnarok worked. I think Love and Thunder didn't. The other problem with Love and Thunder is that it has much more as far as just a political ideology, a gender ideology, especially in it. And it is something where that is also a very major difference between that and Ragnarok, in my opinion. All right, Clown World Review. Thank you for the $2 super chat saying Marxists are sabotaging what it means to be human. Yeah, right. If you are able to destroy language, what happens? Think about Tower of Babel, right? If people no longer speak the same language, they can't communicate. So if we can't even agree on what a woman is or what a man is, and what's even worse is that when we can't even agree on that, when it's something that's rooted in biological fact, we've got a major problem. And yeah, that's ultimately how societies get impacted. Sometimes societies will crumble. Sometimes societies will just face major repercussions. But yeah, that's what they're trying to do. They want to have people divided. They want to have it, right? It really, you go back, and it's further back even than this gender ideology, because you can go even into the welfare state for this, right? Because what's the language that they use? They say, we're just giving you a leg up. What does Justice Sonia Sotomayor even say about her judicial philosophy, right? When she was speaking very fondly of Clarence Thomas, yes, that's right, Sotomayor, speaking fondly of Clarence Thomas, said, but we do disagree on judicial philosophy, saying he believes that you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I believe that sometimes you need a hand to help. So the words, the language, right? It's a farce of, we're just giving them a hand to help them up. When in reality, no, we're just giving them a chain to hold around them for the rest of their life, or ideally to hold around them for the rest of their life, because then they're always connected to us. Then they always rely on us, and then their families and their families. And unless they break that cycle, which is hard to do, people wonder why there's like 11 million jobs that are not being filled. What's going on? Maybe could it be that a lot of those people either, one, have issues with those jobs because of certain requirements, possibly for vaccinations or similar things, or two, that maybe since that time they have gotten help from the government in some form or fashion and are now reliant upon it. So we've already seen this breakdown of language happen even decades well before. See, Thunderduck tagged and said, if Ellen Page is cast instead of Ezra Miller, he can change his gender in a flash. I see what you did there. Again, she can't. She can change her name legally. That's why I'm actually have no issue whatsoever calling her Elliot Page, because if she legally changed her name, okay, that's her legal name. Still going to refer to her as she and her, because guess what? I don't care how she identifies, because just because but just because she has a certain fantasy in her mind, a farce in her mind, because she is not perceiving the world in a proper fashion, just like someone who has depression, someone who has a eating disorder, someone who has any other psychological condition, which we are still today much more willing to call out, though even in those areas, right, when it comes to conditions of eating, for instance, we're starting to see pushback on that, right, with the whole body affirmation movement. It's like, no. Beauty comes in many different shapes and sizes. That is an actual fact. Some people do have issues when it comes to their weight. They eat healthy, they exercise, but their body type is just a little bit bigger. The people, though, you see out front talking about body shame or body positivity aren't the people that we're talking about there. Mike Jackson, what's going on, good sir? Hail to you. Fantasy Fanatic, thanks for tagging, saying, well, at this point, it's a question of ontology. Think of it as humanship of Theseus. If a person suffers from some brain damage and their personality and memories change. Yes, but at the same time, they are still that same person. Again, you're saying very clearly their memories have changed, right? Their memories, their personality, indicating that there is a person, there is an individual person who has not changed, who is still the same, right? This is where we get into the concepts of metaphysical theology, metaphysical philosophy. That there is a form, that there is an idea, right, depending on the philosopher that you're looking through, that there is a soul that remains the same, that has not changed. Let's see. Chef Dignero says, Twitter is all these people have take that away. Their power is gone. Imagine a life where social media is all you got. Yeah, there are for some people, the reply guys on Twitter, whatever it is that they might have, it is still something that is it's a big thing. Gus, what's going on? Welcome. Jay Prize, what's going on, good sir? Thanks for tagging. Saying, morning, sir. Appreciate the truth this morning. Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you. K-Man, who is a member, says, I identify as a billionaire, but the bank won't believe me. Exactly. I identify as a Norse god. I don't, but it's like, that's the same type of mentality. And it's amazing how for many of the gender ideology types, they'll say, well, that's a whole different thing. How? And when you ask them to explain, when you ask them even to define what truth is, they break down, they freak out, and they can't actually have an honest discussion. Because again, if you reject basic facts or basic aspects of reality itself, how can you possibly move forward? Your average patriot nerd, what's going on? Thanks for tagging. He says, hail, don't worry, the people at Twitter have a mental disorder. Yeah, definitely. They definitely got something. Whether it's the fact that they're obsessed with power or a wide variety of other things, they've definitely got some issues. But as I mentioned, they can't stop the signal either. So I'm going to keep a presence on Twitter because that is the primary form of communication for a lot of people, and I'm not going to push people to another platform. I learned my lesson from that. I remember when I turned off my super chats and I was trying to push people to donate via Streamlabs, and I had a lot of people saying, I understand why you're doing it, but I don't like being told how to use my own money, basically. And I'm like, hey, actually, that's a very good point, right? I was gatekeeping in that capacity. And so I learned my lesson. So if people do want to follow on different media platforms, they have every right to. There's only a couple where I'm like, yeah, I'm not using that platform. So for instance, Parler, I have an account on Parler. I have no desire to use that platform ever again because, one, it's not the same platform that it was before it got shut down by big tech. And then at the same time, it also is one where I don't really trust it. I don't really trust the owners. The same can be said for Getter, too. I have a Getter. I was on a Getter and active on Getter for a while, for a little bit at least, but I don't trust them. I do not trust the people who run Getter whatsoever. I'm not saying that I do trust the people necessarily who runs True Social or Gab or Minds, but I trust them a lot more than I do those of Parler Getter. So I have profiles on those two platforms. However, I do not plan to use those platforms. So True Social, Minds, Gab, Discord, Instagram, and now my alt account on Twitter. Those are the ways. And of course, there is the typical there is the usual stuff with Discord. Beverly Hobbit, what's going on, good sir? Saying 4K Blu-rays, physical media, massive sale on Amazon Prime Day. Ooh, nice. I forgot that it is Prime Day. Yeah, let me see if I can open up my... Oop. I was watching Lauren Southern just put out a 3-hour documentary going over her life and career and what's going on and what's happened through her life. It's very interesting. Very, very fascinating stuff. But let me see because there's an awesome app on all platforms. It's called My Movies. It's based from Blu-rays.com. and they are very good when it comes to tracking different deals. So it doesn't seem to be showing the deals at this point, unless these are the deals, which for me, I'm like, I guess those are okay. But I'll definitely check those out. As you all know, I'm a big physical media collector there. 4K Omega Ash says, you better kneel. No. Why would I? Thunderduck says, Elliot Page is trans birthing person who genetically a woman. Question, she had a girlfriend. Is he now straight again? Yeah, that's a great question, right? And that's how absurd it all gets at the end of the day. Also, I also recognize, as I just talked about with Amazon Prime Day, I recognize that Amazon is its own way, in many ways, a very problematic company. And so that's why, for me, it's, if you ever want to go down that road, though, for instance, it's the same people who are like, why do you go see these movies if you're going to criticize the companies for doing work with X, Y, or Z? It's like, well, if I try to get all of that stuff out of my life, I'd be in a very weird situation, because if you think about it, it would be like saying, I don't want to support China at all, and so therefore I'm not going to use or buy anything that says made in China. Okay, well then get ready to give up almost every single part, every single piece of your technology. Because every single piece of technology that you own, at some point there is a piece within it. Just because it may have been put together in Taiwan, or just because it may have been put together in America or Mexico, etc., there are pieces and parts, there are microchips, etc., that have been made in China at some point. That's why it's a problem when you try and go through that complete boycott of everything, because it becomes a problem. So that's why I try to offset it. So for instance, with Prime, I have Amazon Prime. I use Prime a lot. I buy some stuff from it, but I use Amazon Smile, which means that portions of what I buy go to charity. So for me, the charity of choice that I have is Wounded Warriors for our wounded vets. So using a bad platform, using an evil corporation, I'm still going to call them out as an evil corporation, but also at least some good, as little as it might be, can come from it. Anyway, slight tangent there, but wanted to get it out of the way. G-Man, thank you for the $5 super chat, saying they're still waiting for your book to come out. Odin's passive-aggressive guide to being a pseudo-rebel. My Twitter appeal has been pending a month now. That is quite a mouthful for a name. Odin's passive-aggressive guide to being a pseudo-rebel. That is interesting. Let's see. Your average Patriot nerd says, there are 4 lights is from a Star Trek Next Generation episode. Okay, gotcha. I've never seen I've only seen portions of episodes from Next Gen. I have started season 6, though, of DS9. Whew, it's getting good. It is getting good. Let's see. Mr. Buckcrack Media, thank you for joining today. I got suspended for telling the truth about gender, and I will not give in to the mob. Amen, brother. Clown World Review, who is a member, says, the problem with social media is they are weaponizing information in order to manipulate emotions, particularly negative emotions. Agreed. Because, again, information itself is neither good nor evil, right? Information is neutral, but how you use information, that can be good or evil. JKD Buck says, there were 4 lights in the ceiling. The Cardassians who continually tortured Picard were trying to break him and make him say there are 5 lights. 2 + 2 = 5 wins. Oh, okay. Nice. It's always cool whenever there are shows and pop culture that are able to bring in those deeper philosophical points and discussions. So if anyone has questions about following me, where to follow me, so I saw someone in the live chat mention Discord, check out the top link in the video description. Top link in the video description. It is the w.lo. It's a link tree, and there's a link that brings you to Discord. Anyone can be in the Discord. There are certain channels that are specific to members who are our members on Patreon and Subscribestar and Locals, but you won't know about those anyway. The vast majority of those channels, though, are available for everybody. Let's see. K-Man, who is a member, says, Pepperidge Farm remembers. Yes, Pepperidge Farm remembers. Absolutely. Thunderduck, I hope I answered the question. I do not plan to be using Getter. It's already bad enough with the social media accounts that I do have, and I'm not a big fan of Getter, so no. I have an account there. I do not plan to use it. Let's see. Leslie talking. What's going on? Leslie Tarkin, what's going on? Tag to say, my dad's therapist says dad is correct. He changed his name and everything. Oh, my goodness. Well, God bless you. Gonna pray for you and pray for him as well. And that to me is evil. It is evil for a therapist to use their position of really authority and power in that person's life to affirm something that is clearly a mental problem. JKDBuck76, who's a member, says, Merlot wrote about mass brainwashing. He said the saddest thing was talking to its victim, that they cannot distinguish reality from non-reality. Imagine talking to one like that. So sad. Absolutely. Well, it was brought up on the Joe Rogan podcast when they had Dr. Robert Malone on. He talked about mass formation psychosis, and it became something that was talked about a lot. But it's true. We still see it today, where the media creates a narrative that people buy into, and so they accept it as reality. And it really all goes back to, it's amazing how smart the Greek philosophers were. Specifically, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. It's amazing how brilliant they were and how their ideas are still, I mean, I guess they're human ideas and concepts. But I think specifically to Plato's allegory of the cave. Plato's Republic, allegory of the cave. I believe it's Plato's Republic. Because not only do you get movies like The Matrix from it, but also that very concept itself, right? If you were to tell someone, this is not real, this is not reality, if that is what they have believed, though, if that is what they have been told to believe and they've accepted it as their reality, trying to get them to wake up can be a very difficult thing. And that's why to have a therapist who's just going to affirm a false reality is just so damning. Superfan Adam Shawhan, what's going on, good sir? Let's see. Chris Collins, welcome to the chat. Again, if you have a comment or question you want read aloud, just put @Ode in the very beginning of your comment, unless you are a member on the channel. Elizabeth Lyons, who is a member, hail to you, Elizabeth Lyons, says, "Hail Ode in chat, identify as a princess. I have HRH on my badge at school." Well, I guess it must be true. Then. Jacques Lesuave over on Odyssey tagged to say, you think the post was caught by algorithm or was some opportunist waiting for something to report? I think it was caught by algorithm. I think it's because I used the tags hashtag Ellen Page and hashtag Ellen Page is a woman. I think it's pure algorithm at that point. But I do think that the appeal that was originally denied, again, I put an appeal, it was denied within about 5 minutes, which is how I knew that something, something wasn't quite right. It's like, wait a minute, you're trying to say that you actually read this and actually talked to people about whether or not this violated the rules, like in less than 5 minutes. That was definitely, I think, a machine. And now that it's in the process of being appealed a second time, now I think that either they've gotten a lot of appeals because they've booted a lot of people, probably from this, because it was trending. Remember, Ellen Page specifically was trending, and they had to nuke it. Let's see. John Evan Bear, thanks for tagging, saying, let's not forget who Prime Day is really about. Optimus Prime? Is that what you're trying to go with it? Valhalla, what's going on? JKD Buck 76, who is a member, says, never forget that Optimus Prime gave his life for us and Cybertronians. Please remember that when you celebrate Prime Day. Matthew Wheeler, what's going on? Welcome to the chat. Clayton, I have no idea who you are. This is the first time I've seen you in the chat, but how in the world am I a bigot when I'm right now just pointing out pure biological fact? Oh man. Clayton, I hope that you are just like joking and being a troll, like just like troll joking, because if you're being serious, God help you, dude. All right, Kenny Justice tagged and said, do you do prayers for families? Silly question, I know. In what way? I mean, if someone asks me to pray for them, I will. But, so yeah, GS Leo, if you check out the top link, it'll bring you to the Discord server. Or rather, it'll show you a link tree that has the server on there. Jason Montoya, what's going on? Let's see. Ninja Hamster Uprising. What is going on? Thank you for the 10 Australian dollars. Super chat saying Carrie Smith interview with Sohala Devadazi was interesting. The view of the souls as genderless and body life experiences, reincarnation cycle in the Hindu religion. I'm interested in your view. Well, obviously, I reject the Hindu view of that. I believe that we are all individual persons. We are all individual souls. And I reject the concept of reincarnation because, again, not really the stream for it necessarily, but there are just a lot of philosophical problems that dive into it as well. All right, if Clayton, so Clayton is just a troll, so bye. If you wanted to have a discussion, I would have loved to have a discussion, but at no point did you even tag me. And all you're doing is posting random things. What's an immigrant? What's this? What's this? What are you even trying to get at? What is an immigrant? A person who is from a different country who enters into a different country. That's the definition of immigrant. We have definitions for these words. If you want to know the definitions, use probably an older dictionary at this point because now words are just being changed at random. And the person might have a view and say, oh, just talking about free speech. And it's like, you have the freedom to speak your mind, but also I have the right to feel like get away. Because again, if you were disagreeing with me and you wanted to have an honest discussion, I'm all for honest discussions. I have no problem at all with honest discussions. Just like, again, Ninja Hamster here. Didn't have to super chat this. Could have just tagged me in it. But it was a good question. But yeah, I just disagree with that. Let's see. Leslie Toggin tagged to say, you are correct. It is evil. Absolutely. Completely evil. The Discord is on the link tree. You just might have to be at the bottom of the page. It's listed as, or rather, it's shown as the Discord symbol. So if you click on the Discord symbol, that will bring you to the actual link itself. Chef Nick Nero says, all Greeks are brilliant. Are you just saying that? Yeah, there he goes. Has the arrow pointing to him saying Greek. Yeah, couldn't tell. Could never have told. Oh, man. Gosh. This guy was so ridiculous. Any philosophical metaphor can be cherry-picked to support bad logic and arguments. Again, you at no point presented your ideas whatsoever. I've presented my ideas. I've presented the facts behind them. Again, what is a woman? An adult human female. How do we define a female? We'd look to the chromosomes. XX chromosome versus male XY chromosome. Boom. That's a biological fact. There's nothing hateful about it. It's just a biological fact. I don't hate any of the people. By saying Ellen Page, that is not a hateful comment. Because guess what? On her birth certificate, she was born and lived most of her life legally as the name Ellen Page. Only recently has she legally changed her name to Elliot Page. Still a woman, still a female. Can't change that. Again, a biological fact. Anyway, Valhalla tagged to say, I won't be surprised if they start referring to non-anorexic as cis, just like they do for those who don't suffer from gender dysphoria or something similar. They'll make up a new word, right? The word cis is completely nonsensical. It was created out of thin air, just like all these new pronouns that are coming out of thin air too, right? They're just making them up. That's why there are literally new genders being created every single day. And that's why the pride flag is going to get to the point where it's going to have, 300,000 different colors all representing different parts? Because that is the type of logic, that is the type of, rather lack of logic that people like Clayton, for instance, seem to be embracing. Because if there are no actual facts, if there is not reality, if there are no actual facts of biological distinctions, if those things do not matter, then nothing matters. And if nothing matters, which is something that you probably admit to, you are probably a nihilist, if I had to guess, Clayton, since you're clearly showing that you don't really care about facts or logic whatsoever, meaning that you probably don't care about anything at all, that nothing really matters, and ultimately, then why do you even care in the first place? That is one of the problems of nihilism, is that by admitting that you're a nihilist, you are admitting that you do care. You care enough about the world to have them affirm that you are a nihilist. Kenny Justice. Had to say, my mother passed on the 8th and she was very into God. Hey, well, I'll definitely be sorry for your loss, dude. Definitely will keep her in my prayers. May perpetual light shine upon her. Let's see. Leslie Tarkin says, thankfully my dad kicked my mom, sister, and me out of the house for not being. Mom was able to raise us in the church, keep us straight and narrow. I help with missions now. Oh, well, God bless you, Leslie. God bless you for that. That's awesome. But yeah, I still obviously pray for him, because he clearly needs help. And that's just, again, terrible situation in general. Yeah, I figured that that's what you meant to say, was for not agreeing with a false perception of reality. Foul Ball Productions, what's going on? Hail to you. Sebastian, who is a member on the channel, says, did you know that Tom Cruise might earn around $100 million for Top Gun Maverick's success because of some deal he had with Paramount? Doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, he is a major part of the film. He is also a major part for its success because he's the one who's really pushed for it to continue on in theaters and the number of theaters that it is in. So Leslie Tarkin, it's all good. It's all good. Resident Moonhowler, who is a member on the channel, hail to you. Thanks for being here. The Jack of all casuals, thank you for being here. Yeah, exactly. Freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences. The way I always like to say it, and this is something that I think we really need to get back to as a society, is that we often only talk about rights. Right? We say, oh, I have a right to speech. I have a right to own a gun. I have a right to this or that. Rights also come with duties. Just because we have a right to something does not mean that we then can do whatever we want with it. We have a duty to do certain things, right? We have a right to speech, but we have a duty to use that speech responsibly. We have a right to own a gun in our own country, right, in the United States at least, but we have a duty to use that gun properly, to understand how to use that gun properly, etc., right? Every right that we have, whether it be in the Constitution of the United States or whether it just be an inherent right that we have as human persons in general, of which many of the ones in our Constitution are, but regardless of that, all the rights that we have as persons have a duty attached to them. They are not absolute. And I think that's actually a problem that a lot of people on the right, a lot of people who might be more conservative libertarian, actually don't necessarily agree with completely either. Or maybe the language might not be something that they agree with completely, right? Is that understanding of, no. Just because we have a right to, for instance, the Second Amendment in our Constitution, just because we have a right to bear arms does not mean that there are no limits. And that's why there are sometimes limits put onto it at the state level, for instance, because there is a duty. And that's where I think laws come in, is to make sure, and to ensure, rather, that the duty that we have that are attached to those rights are upheld and are given the best place to be able to be fulfilled. All right, we're getting close to the end of the show. So let's see. Jacob Buck, who's a member, says, sad thing is none of these imaginationists fighting for communism read history to know they will be the first put against the wall. Yep. The ones who will give in to and easily lay down are the ones that are going to be taking advantage. Absolutely. See, John Evan Bear tried to say, the word cis always sounds derogatory to me and put down to straight people. And that's why I don't use it, because it's a made-up word. Oh, well, all words are made up. Odin, all words are made up. Yes, but there are words that have been used consistently for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years because they needed to be used, whereas with cis, it is a made-up word for something that is also completely made up. Again, the whole gender ideology nonsense is something that's not actually based in reality itself. It is a rejection of reality. It is a rejection of biological distinction and biological fact. It's essentially saying our feelings and our emotions are factual. And the problem with that is, well, it can't be, because guess what? Feelings and emotions change. Facts do not. By the very nature. For something to be factual, for something to be true, it has to always be true. If something is found out to have not been true, then it turns out, oh, well, then it was actually incorrect, right? The fact was wrong. It actually was untrue. It's not that, oh, the truth became an opinion or something to that effect. No, it just means that a truth was discovered to be false or a fact was discovered to be a falsehood as well. But by their very nature, fact and truth are always so. Differing than opinions. And again, that's why we cannot base reality itself off of our emotions, because our emotions are going to change. By the very nature of emotions themselves, they're always in this state of flux. And there's so many other issues that we could get into, right? Why is the divorce rate so high, for instance? Well, maybe it's because a lot of people who go into marriage base their marriage off of their feelings. And then when they don't feel they're in love, because the vast majority of marriages are usually done out of convenience, are usually no-fault divorces. And so, I'm not in love with them anymore. It's like, okay, then you're saying that you are basing it and had based it completely off an emotion. And that's why when we marry somebody, we should do it out of actual love, which is to will the good of the other. It means I'm committing myself through good times and bad to will your good, to put your good ahead of my own, which is why it's not easy. Which is why, for me, I think that marriage should be a lot more difficult in our culture, and why I personally think that no-fault divorce should not be allowed. That's a whole other discussion for a whole other day. Sebastian says, remember the good old days when seeing a rainbow was just pretty and nice. Yeah, or going even back to the biblical times, right? It's not by coincidence that a rainbow was chosen. Gus tagged to say, isn't calling it evil a discussion ender? For some people, I guess it would be. Oh, man. Alrighty. Gus is laughing because I said duty. All right, let's see. Ninja Hamster Uprising. The rainbow flag is perfect future-proof thinking by someone with current state LGBT plus with expanding 70 plus pronouns. Exactly. But even the rainbow, there are still a set number of colors. Oh, man. Yeah, there it is. Robert Wiles found it. Yeah, so if anyone wanted to join the Discord server, it's on the bottom of the link tree. Leslie Tarkin saying, thank you for sharing the truth. Exactly. Thank you for stipulating that correctly, right? It's not, thank you for sharing your truth. Anyone who says, thank you for sharing your truth should not be listened to, should be ignored. Because it means that they are not, or seemingly, they are not recognizing reality. Because there is the truth, and then there is your opinion. So I have a lot of opinions, but there is only one truth. Again, by its very nature, there can only be one truth. Dragon Bricks says there, some people hate themselves and their lives so much they'd rather live on their own fiction, i.e. their own truth. Yeah. Let's see. Robert Wiles tagged to say there, I have almost died 4 times and learned all I can do to keep pushing myself forward and never give up. I don't have much money, and I slowly getting what I need to start my own business. Hey, well, congratulations, man. That's all we can do. Take it one step at a time, one day, every day going forward, man. JKD76, who is a member, says, Odin, who was better, Hal 9000 or Hal Holbrook? I don't know enough about either character to be able to give an honest nerd answer, so... Anyway, with that, we are at time. We like to do 90 minutes for these streams. And so thank you, everyone, for joining this morning. We were up in the 80s today, which is just insane. It really is humbling for people to show up to these streams, to have these conversations. It's always a lot of fun. And again, if you are anyone that does not if you're someone that maybe doesn't agree with me, hey, there are a lot of people who don't agree with me on a lot of things. Like me and JKD76. Especially on the OMB report stream, right? Sometimes we'll go back and forth on things that we don't agree on. There's a lot of people that don't agree with me on every single thing. The fact that I am a Catholic, for instance, there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, I don't agree with that, or I don't understand it. And it's fine. It's that we're able, though, to have actual discussions of ideas and principles. And because we can all at the very least agree with a basic worldview, we can actually have our own thoughts based in reality, we can have a discussion. Whereas people like Clayton earlier, and again, God bless you, Clayton, if you're still watching this, or if you're tweeting about this, or complaining about this, or reporting my stream, or whatever it is that you're doing, again, I am praying for you, dude, because I hope one day you're able to wake up, that you're able to break away from the cave and step into the real world. I really honestly do. Because that is, again, we are called to love. We're called to love others. And what is real, true love? To will the good of the other. And that's why it is not hateful by any means to have these discussions about people who clearly have a psychological problem and to desire their good, to desire the good of their soul, to desire the good of their mind, the health of their mind. And you don't do that by reaffirming their false perceptions of reality, by reiterating not truth, falsity itself. Let's see, Valhalla Tag said, why do we have to accept people who couldn't even accept who they were to begin with? Get in line. We're all waiting for acceptance. So again, here's the thing, right? There's that difference between acceptance and tolerance, right? We call, and that's what's so interesting is that there used to be a push for tolerance, which was all we're asking is for people to not hate us, basically. And now it's at the point, though, where it's gone to the extreme of, no, now you have to accept it. It's right back to, all this always comes full circle, right? It goes right back down to what Twitter did, right? Remember, we all started off talking about what happened on Twitter. Why did my Twitter get locked? It's because they flagged one of my tweets as being hateful when it wasn't. It was stating a pure fact about Ellen, who now legally goes by Elliot, but is still a biological woman. That is a fact that cannot be changed. And what they have decided to do is they've rejected my appeals, or rather they rejected my first appeal, and they said, oh, your account can be unlocked now, but you have to delete the tweet, but by doing so, you admit fault. And it goes right back to this main concept, right? Of they don't want it just to be toleration. They want it to be acceptance. If you do not accept our false view of the world, you must be canceled. You must be destroyed, essentially. Anyway, JKBuck76, thank you very much for being here, man. God bless you. Oh, thank you. I really do appreciate that. Fear of FEMA, you have a good one. Appreciate it. Phaser1, thank you as well. Inside the helmet says, feelings have also taken over entertainment. Just turn your brain off. Hey, Obi-Wan said the line. Just fluff. Exactly. Yeah, the turn your brain off. Because, is there a place for mindless entertainment? I think that there is. But when we start to have that be our standard, that becomes a problem. Amazing baking soda. What is going on? Soon Disney will have a character who is meta exo inter ampha phyto circum intro dextro somato mammal. Let's stay strong against this lunacy. The crazy thing is that I believe I have, again, no knowledge of the thousands upon thousands of so-called genders that probably exist now. Would not be surprised if those are all part of it in some way. Perfect Hobbit, thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you. You're great. Anyway, with all that being said, make sure you all smash that like button before heading out. Line up that fire button as well. I'm going to go ahead and play my outro, which has my July shoutouts. If you want your name shouted out, check out that top link, that Willow link at the very top of the video description. And just, click on any of those links if you want to follow me on a wide variety, a plethora of various platforms. And if you want to support me in any way whatsoever. Also, if you were someone that had reached out to me already via Twitter for rosaries, if you're listening to this now or in the future, just know I don't have access to that main account anymore, so I don't really know how I'm going to get access. As I said, the only reason why and the only way I will ever, go through with what Twitter wants me to do is by going through and deleting, clicking on the delete the tweet, but in reality being like, I didn't do anything wrong, but this is just a process that I'm going through just so that I can download data, get information that I need to get, let people know what's going on, so that I can then double down and put the same exact tweet out once again. And if they completely nuke the account, okay, well, I've taken care of all the things. Not at that point yet, but again, for anyone that was wondering about it, I do have a new Twitter account at Templar Odin, but if you want to be able to surpass the chance of that account getting nuked, then you can send me an email, odinsmovieblog@gmail.com. I believe I also have one where you can access it through Odin at OMB Reviews.com. It should, be able to come back over. But as I mentioned, I do have an alt account up. If you are active on Twitter, it's at Templar Odin, at Templar Odin. So again, if you are active on Twitter, if not, plethora of other social media sites. Anyway, you guys are all amazing, beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to my July Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above. First starting off with Brandon, let's go Brandon, Chris from the 80s, who you can check out over on YouTube, Garrett Searles, Heimir Ari Hymason, Jeff Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Father, Luca Illick, Orange Hat Reviews, who you can also check out over on his YouTube channel as well. Congrats on recently getting to 1,000 subscribers. Rosetta Allen, who you can also find on YouTube as well. Stan Andrian and Miss Martin Muses, who also has her own YouTube channel. Thank you all very much for supporting me over on the platform of Patreon. We also have my Subscribe Star members, Matt317, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, John B, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alice McCarthy Jr., shout out to you, good sir, and continue that awesome recovery that you are doing. Dean Heiss, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. ZK-Man, you can find out over and follow him on Twitter as well. And we also have my Locals members. We have of course, the lovely and amazing Minnesota hockey fan. How about a hockey player? UAB UAB Mad Dog, Mike Jackson for the win, and Robert Barnes, as well as Brett D90. Thank you very much. And my last supporter, of course, is the amazing Tina B, Empress of the Universe, one of my mods on the channel. Check out her new show with my other Valkyrie, Stephanie B, on her channel, Tina B's channel, which is called Soup to Nuts. Go check that out because it is pretty awesome and fun content. Anyway, that is going to be it for all of my Keeper of the Bifrost level members and above. If you want your name shout out at the end of every video and live stream, please make sure that you check out the top link of the video description. It is w.lo, the Willow link, as I like to call it, and you can find my Patreon, Subscribe Star, etc., where you can get not only shout outs, but also access to an exclusive podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger every single month, and also access to giveaways of Blu-rays, 4Ks, etc., all that good stuff. Check that out in the video description. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.